So, hi everyone. Welcome to our stream for the second half an hour of Leading the Charge. Matt Bove, Howard Simon, Joe Biscaglia. We're coming back on TV for our final thoughts in just about 30 seconds. If you've been watching this, you know the drill. Ask us any questions, comments, things that you want us to talk about. The internet works all over the country and all over the world,
really?
so you can tell us where you're watching from. We're coming back on 15 seconds on TV, and then we will get back to everybody.
Phones now?
Get out.
Depends where. They're still getting them in Wheatfield.
I should probably get rid of my pager.
All right, welcome back, everyone, for our final segment of Leading the Charge, our final thoughts, as we do every single week before we start the second half an hour. So I guess it's really not the final segment, but give me your final thought after Week 9, 7-2 Buffalo Bills.
I love beating Miami. The coolest thing in the world.
You sounded like Buddy the Elf right there.
You did.
Did I really?
Yeah.
You did.
I love watching the Bills beat the Dolphins, man. It never gets old. My final thought is the division's over. Let's just put him in. Just call it. It's over. He's going to tell me I'm crazy, but it's over. I think, honestly, my final thought is they didn't play their A game, and they won. Good. And they have to be in the heads of the Miami Dolphins. You had to leave Orchard Park going, when are we ever going to beat these guys? So it was a big win, fellas. It really was, just to get a little more breathing room. The Jets won the other night against Houston. It was a really good win just to get more space in the division, which, for all intents and purposes, is over.
My final thought has to do with the defensive end position. Greg Rousseau has been on a tear over the last couple of games between the Titans game and then the Seahawks game. 15 pressures over those two games, 25% pressure rate. Like, those are gaudy numbers he led the league over a 2-week span in pressures with 15, according to True Media. And the big reason for him being able to do that is because they changed his role. They had him rush from the left side only, which is a throwback to what he used to do in college. It's a throwback to what he did in the first 2 years throughout his NFL career. Last year, they decided to switch things up because they had Leonard Floyd, they had Von Miller. Both of those guys are at their best rushing from the left. So they're like, okay, Greg, we can put you over on the right side. He's just a different pass rusher from the left side. So what was interesting is now that Von Miller is back from his suspension, whenever Von Miller came on the field for a rotational pass rush, they moved Greg Rousseau back over to the right side. I think that is a mistake. I think they need to maximize Greg Rousseau as much as possible. He is young. He is in prime. He is quite literally their best pass rusher. And the performance from what I saw on film from Rousseau and from Von Miller, both rushing from the left side, dictate that Rousseau should continue to get those reps. So I would put Von Miller on the right side from here on out.
Let me tell you about something I'm passionate about. That, of course, is Christmas music. No, I'm kidding. It's not Christmas music this week. I promise. They are going to bring back Micah Hyde. We say this like it's a bit and we're joking here. The fact that it hasn't happened yet, I think, have a couple people wondering if it's going to. He's coming back. Every time they get asked about it, they say, we love Micah, we're not closing the door. They don't say that just because. I think that this is going to be something that happens as we get closer to the bye week, which we are. You give him a little bit more time to get acclimated, and then you don't just bring back Matt Milano from injury, you also incorporate Micah Hyde into your defense. It just makes way too much sense for a position that is still costing them at times in games. I think Micah Hyde is going to be a Bill. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. And I know that we talk about it every week, but it's not just a bit. I really do think it's going to happen.
After the bye.
After the bye.
That's my guess.
It's also a bit, though, so we talk about it every week.
What happens first? Bills clinch the division or Hyde signs?
Hyde signs. Then the Bills clinch the division. All right. Coming up.
Same week.
Maybe honestly. Same week. Second half an hour of Leading the Charge. We're going to answer your questions. We'll talk about Tyler Bass, Josh Allen, everybody else, answer questions, talk about some cool stuff, maybe tacos. There's always Lloyd in the comments, too. So that's on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Leading the Charge.
Must be getting free food.
All right. I am going to shut off this IFB. You guys can shut off your IFB. Hi, everyone who's watching on the stream. Thank you for tuning in. I'm just getting my headset ready for this show. Mike says, defensive ends trade imminent. Any thoughts on either of that, gentlemen?
I guess
is that a statement or a question?
It's a question.
I don't think so. I mean, they still have, even without Dwayne Smoot, they still have 5 defensive ends on the roster. So they're not hurting. And Smoot just recently replaced A.J. Epinesa in the starting lineup.
Okay.
So my guess is that this would give some more time to Von Miller. I think it would give some more time to the rookie, Javon Solomon, who, by the way, Javon Solomon on one of the Dolphins
Juice?
touchdown.
Juice?
Or-
Like he's got juice or
No,
bad?
I'm saying on one of the Dolphins touchdown, he got pinned in by Austin Jackson. So he's got to get better at edge contain. That's his biggest issue right now. But from a pass rushing perspective, he's on it. He's got some.
How about
potential.
a player-for-player trade? Does Mike Edwards have any value anywhere if the Bills peddle him to find a 7th, 8th defensive lineman or something? Backup offensive lineman, anything?
I'm sure you could, but I don't know.
Okay.
I was going to say, I just don't know if it gets you a ton, right?
Like Mike Edwards is probably the value of like a 7th round pick at
All
this point. So maybe,
Backup offensive lineman?
yeah. Conceivably,
It's a
it could.
part that doesn't appear you're going to ever use.
Yeah, they have to clear a spot somehow at safety, and so that would make sense.
Yes.
That was for Hyde to sign.
If they could make a move to get him off the roster,
Yeah.
then that would be
20
smart.
seconds until we come back for this next commercial break.
So stop cursing.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I wouldn't think it would happen. Player-for-player trades in the league just don't happen anyway.
it happened.
Right.
That was who was it? Eli Harold for. Sorry.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to our second half an hour of Leading the Charge, the half hour where we take the conversation online. We've already got somebody watching from Nova Scotia. There you go. They make fun of me because I love to see where the comments are coming in from.
No, because you don't understand how the internet
No,
works.
I understand how
That's
the
the
internet
part.
works.
No, that's
I
the
just,
part.
I just think it's really cool that people are watching this.
Nova
You know, like
Scotia
I
can
know
watch
people
us.
are watching in Wheatfield. I know they're watching on Grand Island. They're watching in OP and Amherst. But I'm like, oh, Nova Scotia. That's pretty cool.
They must have a really strong
That's
antenna.
called a computer.
That's called a computer. Well, on this
Dead box.
fancy machine here, we've got some questions already. We will get to those, but I do want to start with Tyler Bass because, of course, that's the thing that everybody is talking about today. What did you think of the end of the game? What do you think about the future with him? And just like, is this a confidence booster that he can just kind of take and run with? You can start for this one.
Oh, it's great for his confidence. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if he would ever admit it, but my goodness, with the struggles he's been having, how would you not have an issue with your confidence
You'd
at some
have to.
point?
Yeah.
And by the way, he didn't just make that kick. He crushed that kick.
Yeah, he did.
That thing looked like it would have been good from 70. I mean, with the angle we saw, the minute it left and it started going in, as long as it didn't just cut, it was dead center and he boomed it. So Tyler Bass lives to play another day. You know, there's no kicker on the practice squad. We don't have to talk about Tyler Bass for another week or whatever. So, but I think it's huge for his confidence to do that, win the game, hit the big kick. Like Joe said, hit 2 from 40 plus as well. It was a great day for his confidence.
I mean, you said you thought he was, before he stepped out, you said in the press box, he's going to make it.
Yeah.
Now, did you say that because it's just a sick, twisted way for a football game to end, or because you genuinely were like, oh, I think he's going to make this?
I don't know if you know this about me, but I've got a little contrarian to me.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I thought he was striking the ball well from 40 yards and out earlier on in the game. So I'm like, you know what? Everyone's expecting him to miss this. I think he crushes it.
But it wasn't as much about his struggles. It was a 61-yard kick.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I didn't even realize that was a franchise record.
But
So,
even
know.
before in the earlier years of his career, he would nail some long yardage kicks. So if you're going out and bringing in a kicker to be your go-to guy in the playoffs, you're not really bringing in a guy who can
Kick
do
a
that
61-yarder.
Right,
You're bringing
right.
in a guy who can make a 44-yarder.
in Orchard Park.
Sure.
Mind you. So I thought yesterday was a really nice day for Tyler Bass. They've tried everything with him. I mean, it has been a build him up in the summer sort of deal. Then give him some tough love after a preseason loss in a news conference setting, where I believe Sean McDermott said, was it the Panthers game where he's like, got to make the
He knows he's going to make those.
He knows he's got to make those kicks.
Yeah.
And then going into the year when Brandon Beane was asked about it, he's like, well, if it's someone that was a bit younger, maybe I would have brought in a practice squad kicker. Like this is stuff that sends messages to try and get Tyler Bass to snap out of whatever funk he was in. And finally, they brought in a practice squad kicker after missing one against the Jets, missing a field goal attempt against the Jets, and then an extra point on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have waited for him to snap out of this, and they're really hoping that this 3 for 3 from 40 plus is the thing that will be able to do it. Right now, he is 6 of 9 from 40 plus this season. So they're hoping that is what is able to get him going for the rest of the year.
All right, so there is the Tyler Bass aspect of it. Obviously, Josh Allen in the offense had a very strong second half. Rob, though, does have a comment from Facebook. He says, the run defense has me more scared. Now, that is something we did talk about in the first half an hour of the show, but I think that this has a lingering effect on the team. That's definitely the biggest concern from yesterday, right? It's not the final score. It's not the slow start from the offense. It's they just are getting run over consistently.
Yeah, there were big holes. They're getting beat to the edge. I mean, Achane's nuts, though.
They're
He's
both
so fast.
They're both really good.
Mostert is good, too.
But it's also kind of become a theme, and it's not always just elite guys.
Yeah, and
are you talking about Dare Ogunbowale?
That's what I mean. It's just like there's random guys who are starting to
I think you'd hear that name.
No, I did not
break
have
off,
that on.
Right?
No,
that wasn't like
wasn't on the list.
But they have played against some elite backs: Brees Hall, Derrick Henry, Achane yesterday. Some really good guys. But then you've got
Ogunbowale coming up too, though. That's it. Does
Cam Akers before he got traded.
Where's the Dari video? Does Julia have the?
No, I don't think we've got that one.
It's called V Ogunbowale.
And if Howard can spell that, I will give him $50 right now.
He just told me. No, I'd be worried about it for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you'd be nuts if you didn't think about it. Again, now Miami has two really good running backs, but the Bills did not win the line of scrimmage. And like I said, up the middle, out to the off tackle, it didn't matter. Whatever Miami did, they were able to succeed in.
This is a comment from Mike. Now, Taron Johnson said this to me after the game yesterday about the same thing. He said, basically, we decided what we wanted to give up.
Right.
We didn't want to get beat over the top, so we're going to let them have success on the ground. But that's relative. You can say we're going to let them run on you, but not we're going to both let them have 5.5 yards of carry, which is what they did. So, yeah, Mike, I agree with your point to an extent, but like those numbers, you can't sustain winning if teams are going to run on you like the way the Dolphins did yesterday.
You have to be able to get off the field.
Yeah.
And they were unable to do so in the second half outside of the play where Taron Johnson forced a fumble.
Which was a huge play.
And that was the type of tide-changing moment that they needed, because otherwise the Dolphins would have been on the front foot where the Bills were the entire way. They were going score for score in that second half. So to a certain degree, I totally understand where he's coming from. But at the same time, you have to be able to get off blocks and be able to limit what these running backs are doing. These 8+ yard gains. The word you used was perfect. It's unsustainable to really be able to help yourself get off the field, because even when things get condensed down in the red area and your backs are against the wall, teams can still run on you if you're trying to avoid Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle from getting loose from that perspective.
The other thing, too, is this is not a new approach. The Bills, when the Bills play Miami with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they don't want to get beat over the top anytime they played him. It was the same approach in week 2. It was the same approach last year.
Yeah.
And they've had really good success. But they didn't give up 5.5 yards of carry in some of those games. I mean, they didn't get beat over the top, but they were also able to contain the running game.
Yeah.
And they just weren't able to do it yesterday.
I'll say the thing that everyone's afraid to say. The Dolphins have one of the best offenses in the NFL.
Yeah.
To me. I mean, you look at their record and be like,
they were number 1 last year in scoring.
You look at their record and you're like, oh, they're 2-6. What are you talking about?
I mean, Tua's played 3 games.
Exactly.
Right? Like
2 3/4.
That's what I mean.
And by the way, the 2 games back, which they both lost those games,
27
they scored 27 and 27.
3 3/4.
3 3/4.
27 against Arizona, 27 yesterday.
Some fantastic comments are rolling in. So we are going to take a quick break. I believe, who had the comment here? I want to get to the Ed Oliver question during the commercial. So we'll be right back on TV, and during the commercial, we'll talk about Ed Oliver.
The commercial is when I break down line play.
Yeah, for sure. All right, who had the question
Bring
on
it.
Oliver? Because I just saw it,
You
and
should
it was
use
okay.
a
Here,
tablet and
Where-
diagrams.
thank you. So John asks, where has Ed Oliver been for the last few games? And I actually had the same thought. So I'm glad you asked, John, because our film guru here, I'm sure, has some sort of answers. Now, I will say,
I'm just a guy who watches tape.
I've seen a lot of clips of Ed getting helped. And I know that was the thing we talked
Held?
about. Yes. Like, it's like, oh, it happens kind of on every play in the NFL. But where has Ed been? Because I agree, there's not been as many explosive plays this year.
I think he's on the up from how he started his season. This game, I thought he was one of the lone bright spots. Is a relative.
Is a stretch. Yeah, is a stretch.
It was Nku, Rousseau, and Oliver who graded out for me slightly better than average.
Defensively.
Defensively,
Just-
yes,
just-
yeah.
just-
On offense,
how
different
often
story.
does Ed see double teams as you're watching the games?
His double team rate is pretty high.
Okay.
Honestly, he's up there because a lot of times, like Daquan Jones isn't getting those double teams, and there was also a lot of times in that game where they paired Ed Oliver with Eli Nku, and Nku would get the single and Oliver would get the double.
Okay.
But that said, Oliver still needs to be able to stand up to double teams, which he does. He is able to do. There were also some plays where he blew it up and the Dolphins got by it because the Bills couldn't get off their blocks.
Sure.
So that's the stuff that you don't see, because if it's not a play that winds up being a tackle in the backfield, which is why I like watching the film in general, because you just don't know about defensive line, offensive line play until you actually get in there.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of questions here. This one is from Trisha. Any word on Matt Milano? This is a good commercial question before we come back to break. I mean, Trisha, we all, I think, believe Matt Milano is going to be back. It's just a matter
They
of...
admitted it.
Yeah, I mean, they said it. I mean, what was their wording? That it's not a Matt... They
Not
didn't
when. It's not if, it's when.
Yeah, something
Sean
along...
McDermott said there's a vision
There is a... Yeah, so
for his return.
when would that... I mean, I know we're not doctors here, but we would probably think what? They open his window towards the end of this month?
I don't think it's going to be before the bye.
Right.
I think we would have seen him working out on the side of practice already if it would be before the bye, because why rush it when you have the bye in
Yeah.
Does the bye count as one of the 21 days?
if you were to open it before, yes.
Okay.
It's legitimately 21 days.
Okay, so then what they'll probably do is they'll probably
Open
do
it
it
when they get back.
Exactly,
Yeah.
the week that they come back from the bye, which is the 49ers game, end of November, right after Thanksgiving. So that's probably
So
a
that'll
good time.
sync up with him and Micah getting in the lineup
Is
right at
that
the same
5,
time.
Dang. All right, we're coming back on TV shortly.
10, 11. Is it 5 games left or 6 games left coming out of the bye? No, they play 9, 10, 11, 6 games left.
This is a
Okay.
great question. All right, welcome back, everyone. Mike, I am going to give you this because you'll laugh, but you have to answer this quickly. What happened to the Come On Darlene segment? That is from Mike.
I don't want to talk about
You
it.
don't want to talk about it? That was a segment on his podcast. It doesn't exist anymore. Double J says here, they should do better next week against the Colts. Flacco and his wide receivers aren't the Dolphins. I certainly agree with that. Michael says, great show, gentlemen. I was at the grocery store today looking for milk cartons with pictures of Curtis Samuel on them. What happened to this free agent signing that was supposed to be a weapon for Josh? Is he a buyout candidate next year? A lot there. But if Keon Coleman is banged up, they need Curtis Samuel, especially right now. Any confidence that they can figure something out with him?
Why would I have that?
I don't know. I think it's more betting on the player than it is on what we've seen.
Look, the whole issue has not been about Curtis Samuel. For
Yeah.
me, it's Joe Brady, coaches, how they use him. I don't know. It can't be a Josh thing. The design of plays and how the role they had for Curtis Samuel to me just didn't make any sense. So I would not have a great deal of faith that all of a sudden, if Coleman's out, Samuel's numbers just skyrocket and everything's unlocked. I hadn't seen it yet.
Now, for the sake of the conversation, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keon Coleman has a wrist injury. Arm wrist is what Sean McDermott described it as. We don't know the extent of it. But if this is something that's going to linger, obviously wide receiver becomes an area that they need to get more production out of. Trade. What do you think they do? Or do you think they just keep it in-house and hope they get more from those guys?
Well, two things for context with Curtis Samuel. He's just coming back from an injury, and Joe Brady today on his Zoom call effectively said that they knew that Samuel would be on a pitch count today or against the Dolphins. So they kind of knew, but he's also kind of been on a pitch count the entire season.
Sure.
So that's only that only goes so far for me. I don't think he would be the direct beneficiary of more time on the field for Keon.
Uh-huh.
I think it would just become Amari Cooper, Mac Hollins, and Khalil Shakir at that point, because Hollins is basically the backup to both of the boundary receiver spots. Now, what would they do? They do have some guys on the practice squad that they like. Jalen Virgil is someone that they've brought up the last couple of weeks. He plays a bunch of special teams. Got 3 snaps against the Dolphins.
I do notice him going in motion every now and then. So
Yeah,
I know he's out there.
But he can play slot. He can play Z, which is what they would need out of someone that they call up.
Yeah.
So Virgil, they've got Tyrell Shavers, and they've got KJ Hamler, who they kind of just want to keep on the practice squad.
All right, we're going to continue this during the commercial break. We're going to take a quick break on the TV side of things. We'll be right back. This is a good question. This is from Paul. How much different do you think the game is if there is not the phantom holding call that wiped out the Josh Allen touchdown and the helmet-to-helmet call on Taylor Rapp? I do actually think that
Are we talking about the hold on Torrance?
Yeah, because
that
that was
wasn't
a touchdown.
a hold.
Right, not the
So I think what Paul is basically saying is, this game was pretty murky for a while, but conceivably it would have been 10.
That would have blown the game open.
I mean, instead of 10-6, it's 10-10 at the half.
Yeah.
Do you think that the game is different? Do you think they'd blow them out, or do you think it's still pretty close in the second half?
I think it's still close.
I think it's still close.
Yeah, I think, Paul, I agree with what
Dolphins
they've said.
Played a great game.
Tua was great yesterday.
He had 3 incompletions, and one of them
was
was
a throwaway.
a dirted screen.
Yeah, so I mean, Tua was outstanding
and another one
yesterday.
was a
Throwaway, yeah.
So 2 of them
So
were
one
on
legit
purpose.
off. And the one pass was Rasul Douglas breaking up the pass for Hill.
Yeah.
That's the only true incompletion they had all day.
Now, I will say, Paul, nonsense, both of them. Terrible calls.
Terrible calls.
Bills have benefited from terrible calls. Those were terrible calls
This
against
is a guy
them.
who has been my friend for a lot of years.
Who?
You.
Me?
Because I always make them because everybody
Yeah.
gets calls.
Yeah, everybody gets calls. It's
Yeah.
weird. The NFL stinks sometimes, but that's just the way it is. This is from Gary. I think we all are on the same page here. Is there any way they trade Dawson Knox tomorrow? I feel like -0 chance, Gary. I know he is not contributing in the way that people want. This is all tied to money. Nobody would be taking that on. And I think that they still do trust him
Big locker room guy.
more than they probably should. Yes, he is.
Culture guy.
He's beloved in that locker room, arguably like Josh's best friend there. Like, I don't think that guy's going anywhere.
He's got one of the
anytime
top
soon.
cap numbers next season on the team, doesn't he?
Probably.
He's top 5
They
in
kicked the
their cap.
can down the road on him.
Yeah, so he's going to
got
be
like over
very
$15 million
expensive.
cap number next year.
We got off of the Curtis Samuel question, but yeah, like definitely buyout candidate next year, right?
Yes. I was also thinking, because if he's a buyout candidate, they're not really saving anything. So I was maybe even thinking like he might be a pay cut and keep kind of guy.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I think could be of value.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
right now he is not valued at what he would be getting paid.
This is my Curtis Samuel take. I think that there's going to be like a moment where he makes a big play, and then after that, he's going to kind of continue to be in the offense. I don't think it's what. Remember, I said this a couple weeks ago that Deontay Hardy made a couple big plays for them last year, offensively, not just the punt return. I feel like that's going to be Curtis Samuel, but then there's going to be more of them.
I don't know. I don't know that I agree, because if you look at his entire career,
10 seconds until we're on
his
TV.
entire career, he's like come up for a huge game and then disappeared into the shadows.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's just him.
All right, NFL trade deadline tomorrow, 4:00. A lot of questions about the trade deadline just in general. Some questions about safety, Mike Edwards. What do we think happens tomorrow? Do we think it's a pretty quiet day for the Bills? Do we think they're active? What do we think they should do? Howard, we'll start with you.
I'll stick with they'll make a trade. I think it'll be a depth. They're going to try it. I'll go with a depth defensive lineman.
Okay. No, how about you?
My guess is that they're going to be mostly quiet. Maybe they move somebody at the back end of their roster to get a pick out of it, and then call somebody up.
Like a Mike Edwards, basically.
Yeah, like a Mike Edwards. But I will also say this: never say never when it comes to Brandon Beane. I've learned that lesson the hard way. If there is a value out there, if there is a deal out there, if someone gets desperate that they want to get somebody off of their roster,
Sure.
never say never with that guy.
You know the thing that we're both thinking of, right? With the never say never with Brandon Beane. We were texting the day that they signed Von Miller, because they were in that day Chandler Jones, right? Chandler Jones goes to the Raiders, and you're like, okay, well, I guess the Bills aren't going to take a swing at a pass rusher. I'm working here, he's at home. I'm on my way to get dinner, and all of a sudden the notification comes down. The Bills have signed Von Miller. I remember calling him because we had to get something ready for TV that night. I mean, like, he is very aggressive. I think he should be, though. I don't think that he should ever be criticized for being overly aggressive in the window that they're in. I mean, in the first half hour of the show, we showed the stand-ins in the AFC. The Chiefs are 1, the Bills are 2, and that team is coming here in 2 weeks. I know it's probably lofty right now to think that you can get to the 1 seed, but I feel like this is a year where the AFC is open. We all think the Ravens are juggernauts, but the Ravens have also proven time and time again that sometimes they're not the same team in the playoffs.
Mhm.
And Josh always seems to elevate in the playoffs. So that's why I'm like, give this guy as many weapons as possible and go for it.
But I think, again, if you looked at which side of the ball needs more help,
It's the
now,
defense.
It's the defensive side.
Yeah, and they also did already make a substantial trade to help the offense. By the way, Amari Cooper, we think probably is pretty close, right?
I'm assuming so. It sounded like from what Sean McDermott said both after the game and today on a Zoom call is that early in the week they thought that they were going to have both of those guys, and they just it wound up kind of snowballing on them, and so they thought it was in the best interest of their entire season probably to sit them down.
Okay, one more segment coming up here on the other side of the break. We'll answer a few more questions, final thoughts before you get ready to watch Monday Night Football right here on ABC. Okay, Tom, this is hindsight is a heck of a thing because we all said the same thing. He said, please ask Joe if he still thinks the Bills will only win 3 more games, because we all said before the season that we thought they were going 10-7. I mean, hindsight's a heck of a thing. Right now,
People just like to corner me.
yeah, they like to,
Because I'm the villain.
but we all said it, right? We
No,
said,
I think Joe was only one. I had 14-3.
yeah, he did.
You said 9-8, I think.
I don't.
He asked for Joe.
He said Joe specifically.
Wait, did you say 9-8?
I don't
No,
know.
he said.
I think I said 10-7.
We all said 10-7. The only difference was I think you didn't think they were going to win the division, but you were like you said they're going to be the best team at the end and they're going to get hot into the playoffs. They are exceeding. Is that fair to say they have exceeded all of our expectations this year?
Yes.
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 For me, big time. Yes.
Specifically on defense.
Yeah. Right. You thought it would be more of a.
Defense was going to go through a lot of issues.
I agree.
And they have gone through some issues, but not nearly to the degree as I was expecting.
I mean, Tom,
And the offense is coming around nicely.
Also, you don't know that Tua is going to go down in week 2, which is a thing.
Right.
And then also you don't know that the Jets are going to implode because they had a mightily
That's a loss I
impressive
think
roster.
I might have figured in. The schedule, right. And the schedule turns out to be not as, to this point, as daunting or as challenging as we thought it was going to be, because I thought you never knew about Jacksonville, and Jacksonville just they're a tire fire.
Dave says, "Why does Beauvais look like a hologram?" Dave, that's because I am. I'm not actually here. I'm in my basement on Grand Island
I
right
could
now.
put my finger through
But
it.
with AI technology, it's incredible what you can. No, I am actually here, Dave. I don't know why I look like a hologram. I promise. He said that they pick on you, Joe, because they love you.
That's very true.
All right, 10 seconds.
Appreciated. My wife says the same.
All right, welcome back. Final thoughts as we wrap up the Week 9 version of Leading the Charge. It can be something similar to that you said in the first half hour, or it can be something completely different.
2 things. One, I love you, Khalil Shakir.
Yeah, he's
Keep
good.
doing what you're doing, man. He is so much fun to watch. Breaking tackles, juke, the one juke move yesterday. Plus, Mac Hollins. Way to go, buddy. I mean, it's been a tough year for Mac Hollins, right? Come on, let's give him a little love.
Yeah.
Huh? He caught a touchdown. He had a big 3rd down conversion on the game-winning
Way to
field
go,
goal
buddy.
drive. Way to go. Man.
Actually, 2 big 3rd down conversions.
Way to go even more, Mac.
You talk to Mac Hollins like I think when I learned how to ride my bike in the driveway, my parents were like,
Way to
way
go,
to go,
buddy.
buddy.
Way
Good
to-
job.
way to go, buddy.
Way to go, buddy. I do agree with the sentiment, though. How about you?
I was most impressed yesterday with Josh Allen's overall patience.
Yeah.
Because the Dolphins, almost unexpectedly, they backed up the bus and they decided to play a heavy zone. They said, okay, you're not going to beat us deep, because in the last 2 games against the Titans and against the Seahawks, the Bills had a bunch of explosive plays and lots of yardage that racked up. So the Dolphins said, that's just not going to happen. And because Josh Allen in the past has shown the penchant for trying to force the ball into where it shouldn't be going to, because he's getting a little bit frustrated, Allen just continued to have that poise the entire game, got the ball out of his hand quickly, was never really under pressure against the Dolphins, and I thought he had a fantastic game. It shows 235 yards, but it was so much more effective than that. And then, of course, you have the couple of cyborg plays where
The Quentin Morris touchdown.
He goes
Come
crazy on that one, and even like the third down conversion, down to get down closer to the goal line, and then on top of that, the touchdown that should have been.
All right, Bills 7-2, like we said during the commercial, exceeded our expectations up to this point. They're at the halfway point in the season. Things are looking very good, especially in the division. And things are looking great here on another episode of Leading the Charge. For Joe B, for Howard Simon, I'm Matt Bove. Thanks for watching. Monday Night Football is next.
You're just a hologram. How could you look that good?
That's what I mean. Somebody commented, thank you everyone for watching. John was like, you ignored my question on Oliver. No, John, we talked about it for like 3 minutes actually. Yeah. So when this is done, the stream, just go back to one of the commercials and you'll see it there. But thank you everyone for watching. Bye all.
Have a good night.
A lot of people watching. So peace y'all. See you guys next week.